2025 that is not looking into stablecoins, not trying to better understand how this technology can be applied within their systems, within their transactions to create better experiences for their customers, is going to have no customers in 2045.
I know that you are a Pokemon cards fan.
Do love Pokemon.
You used to trade them.
Yes. Well, I used to sell them, yes. And so, yeah, I started doing that in 5th grade, and then did that basically through college. So that was essentially my first job. Yeah, well, because I wanted more Pokemon cards, right, as a kid. And my parents were like, well, we're not going to give you more money for more Pokemon cards. Figure it out, right? And so, I
figured it out.
Yeah. It's the beauty of the internet is nobody has to know how old you are, right? You can kind of just, present yourself as a normal adult selling Pokemon cards.
Well, so you started to trade Pokemon cards when you were very young.
Mm-hmm.
Good for you. That's probably why I'm not a CEO today, because I didn't do that when I was 11 years old. That's how you started to be an entrepreneur, basically. Honestly, that probably taught you a lot.
Yes. I mean, I enjoyed that quite a bit. Frankly, I can't even say if money wasn't an object, because now, I don't know if you follow the Pokemon card market, but it is doing much better than crypto. It is booming. And so, yeah, I mean, that was something that I enjoyed quite a bit. I don't know, now that I am 21, obviously, I don't know if I would enjoy it as much as I did as a kid, but I enjoyed it quite a bit as a kid. And yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, for me, it was that bug, right, that you catch, right? And, from there ended up, doing a bunch of ghostwriting, right? I did a bunch of articles and things online. I would write for other publications. And yeah, just doing sort of odds and ends, right? Jobs online. But that was definitely my favorite and the best.
What did you ghostwrite about?
Sports, mostly.
Sports? Any specific sports?
No, really whatever somebody would ask me to write about. And that sort of just ended up becoming my niche, right? And so I would get hired out by, freelanced out by, any type of website that you can imagine, right? That just needed content. And this was obviously before, ChatGPT, back when human writers mattered.
It did. So, that's a cause we're not talking about enough.
And so, when I look back, I was essentially just ChatGPT in this stuff, right? I mean, I would just, I would read, hey, give me a recap of this game. Great. I read, 3 recaps online and then just, regurgitate it. Right. So, it was literally just ChatGPT.
A data aggregator.
Essentially. Right.
That's also a flex.
Yeah. Yeah. At the time it was good. Right. And so, and then, worked my way. I was one of the top writers on most of the, the freelance platforms that you're probably familiar with. And then, I was doing Pokemon cards and, yeah.
And then you made your way through university studying finance?
Yes.
Is that where you met your co-founder, Justin?
No. So I met Justin, in high school. So we were both volunteering at a camp in Mobile, Alabama for adults with Down syndrome, cerebral palsy, stuff like that. Met him there. And that was also about the time that I started learning about Bitcoin and getting into the space, right? Justin is very into it. He has always been the guy that would scourge Reddit forums and, was talking about it back in 2012. He's about 6'7", very sweaty. He'd have,
important detail.
Yeah, 6 people, just at a college party, arms spread wide, sermon on the mounding Bitcoin. So, which did very well with the ladies back in 2013.
I'm sure.
Nothing college girls wanted to hear about more than 2 sweaty dudes talking about Bitcoin.
And mining, yes. That's the dream.
It's every girl's dream.
Listen, he wasn't wrong. He was early. That's what you gotta say. Great. So in high school you met.
Yes.
Did you guys go to college together or completely?
We went to the same college, yeah. So he's a year younger than me, so that makes him 20. Yeah, so we both went to Auburn in Alabama, capital of innovation. And and then he was best friends growing up with my college roommate. So.
Okay. You guys went off to build Yellow Card straight from, you were still in college, weren't you?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. 2016, establishment of Yellow Card.
Yes.
It's been almost a decade, right?
Don't remind me. Yes.
What's the origin story? What made you guys want to look into, I guess, the stablecoin market right away?
Yeah, I mean, stablecoins weren't really around yet, right? And so when we started out, it was fully Bitcoin. And so, Justin taught me about the space early, right? By 2015, I was just fully down the rabbit hole, right? Like, this is the best thing ever. This is what I'm doing with my life. We tried a number of things in the States. None of them worked. Most of them were hilarious. And that's essentially most of what was going on at that time. What we landed on was we were going to put a gift card in CVS, Walmart, places like that. You'd walk in, buy this gift card, redeem it for Bitcoin. And we started building that out. And one day met this Nigerian man at a Wells Fargo in Auburn, Alabama. Objectively the best place to meet Nigerian men at Wells Fargo. He was sending $200 to his family. And the bank charged him $90 to send $200. And I thought, well, that's insane, right? So I talked to the guy, hey, have you heard of Bitcoin? It's free, it's instant, it's fun, all this great stuff. And went home and, just started thinking, oh, what's this guy's mom going to do with $200 in Bitcoin, right? Like, you can't buy food with that. You can't pay rent with that. What problem does this actually solve for, somebody in this position? And so I don't think I knew where Nigeria was on a map at the time. They don't teach you nearly as much about Africa as you might expect in the Louisiana education system, which I know that might be hard for you to hear.
It is hard for me to hear, but it is not for someone who grew up in the States, not me, you, right? I don't expect anything else.
Okay, ow. I have a lot of bad things to say about the French, too, if we're going to go there.
Get on to it.
Had no idea, and just started doing all this research, right? And I wanted to understand, the country and the currency and the continent and the banking system. And, while doing all this research, I realized if I want to understand Nigeria, I need to speak to somebody from there. And so I put out an ad online that said, looking to speak to Nigerian men.
Interesting. Yeah. How was that received?
Could have been worded better.
Yes.
Yeah.
As a ghostwriter, you should have known better.
Yeah, they didn't want to talk about banking. That's
very surprising.
They did not, that is not what they were interested in. Could have been worded better. Yes, ended up meeting this guy. And this was the point in my life where I learned that Nigerians are the most convincing people on the face of this planet. Because within about a month and a half of meeting this Nigerian man on the internet, he convinced me to go get a passport and take the first international flight of my life. I had been on a plane 4 times in my life before starting the company. And we landed in Lagos, Nigeria on a 6-day-old passport, no visa, no shots, and a one-way ticket that we spent all of our money on. So lived in a single bed, single room, 1 twin bed with 4 dudes. And the options were either make enough money to get home or live in Nigeria for the rest of my life. We just got to work, right? It took some time, right? Eventually made enough money to get a ticket down to South Africa, took a bus to Botswana, got some dude to drive me to Zimbabwe, hitchhiked to Zambia, just sort of vagabonded my way across the continent, setting things up. Perfect timing, right? This was all right before COVID. And so we set everything up at a time where then everything went into lockdown. The governments were all shut down. There was no, access to any of this stuff. We had all of it, and we were able to, grow and expand in a way that nobody else could do because it was COVID. You couldn't open new entities in some countries, right? You couldn't open bank accounts for a number of months. Yeah.
So going to Africa physically, talking, interacting with people, seeing the way they live is really what shaped what you guys ended up doing with Yellow Card.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, so I think, we sort of had the initial idea that we had, right, as we started looking outside of the US was that there's a lot of opportunity in this space, but everybody in the space is only talking about the US and Europe, right? And that's really it. And then you had obviously like Asia was starting to come up like in the crypto industry at the time. But yeah, I mean, all of the focus was on US and Europe. And, there's a big world out there, right? There are a lot of other places outside of the US and Europe. I know, again, that might be hard for you to hear, but and so.
The fact that most of the population is actually there is also a shocker.
Yeah. And so, I mean, that was most of the interest is like, well, okay, where can we do this where nobody is doing it and where arguably the technology is more important, right? I think, in the US, Europe, East Asia, right? People are just kind of trading dog and cat coin back and forth amongst themselves, right? Whereas, when you look at so much of the rest of the world, this technology has actual practical implications on the way that people hold money, move money, access finance, right? Access services that they're not able to access through, a traditional bank or anything like that in their country.
So actual utility of blockchain technologies and crypto.
Yes.
As opposed to simply taking it for the trading value.
Yes.
Like we do in the West mostly.
Yes.
Because the necessity is not as high.
No, the necessity is in hell. Look, and this is something that I know the broader industry doesn't want to hear, right? But like, when I'm in the US, right, like, and I need to send money to say Europe, like, look, I send money to Europe regularly. It's not that hard. Like, it works kind of fine. It's not actually a big
deal. It could be better, but
sure,
it's
I
not
guess, but like, it
terrible.
works fine. I go to JP Morgan, I tell them I need to send money to this place, and it gets there next day usually. Not a big deal. There are countries around the world where you cannot send money internationally, right? For any number of reasons. Disconnectivity from SWIFT, illiquidity on the currency, et cetera, et cetera. We live in a society where we're already on the dollar, right? We're already on, the world reserve currency. So yes, like banking in the US sucks and can be a lot better. And if the dollar was a startup, it would have failed a long time ago because the user experience is just trash, right? And, stablecoins and all that help with that. But largely things like financial services work pretty well in the US and Europe. And it's really these other parts of the world where, this technology has so much to offer in terms of actually raising the bar on, what people are able to access and expect.
So you guys started from being more of a consumer-facing exchange to becoming more of a stablecoin infrastructure, right? When did that shift happen and why?
Yeah, I think there were, really two moments. So the first one was 2020 or end of 2020, we listed USDT. So before that, we were Bitcoin, right? 99.9% Bitcoin.
Up until 2020?
Up until 2020. Every once in a while, somebody would do Ethereum. Like once a month, we'd have like an Ethereum transaction. But it was, like 99.9% Bitcoin, right? And we listed USDT like end of 2020, beginning of 21. We went next day, like first day USDT was offered. It did about 30% of the volume, right? So like 70% Bitcoin, 30% USDT. Within 4 months, we were 99% USDT. So it was...
When you say 99%, are we talking about...
Like of our overall transactional volume.
Okay.
Yeah. So of our total transactional volume, 99% of it was USDT within 4 months of listing. And so that was the first thing that got us, everything that I'm talking about with like the importance of the dollar globally and illiquidity and things like that. That was all stuff that like, we thought about, and it was a market reality, but we never we just never focused on it the way that we should have, right? And when we realized, oh crap, everybody is just looking for dollars, right? Like everybody's just buying USDT. This coin's not going up or down, right? Trust me, I bought a lot of it back then, hoping I was going to make a bag. 5 years later, still $1.
Guess what?
Should have just bought Bitcoin. It's
stable for a reason.
It is very stable. And we just started looking into it. It's like, oh wow, like yeah, people want the dollar, right? People don't actually want Bitcoin for transactional purposes, right? Maybe for like store of value and things like that, right? Because I still would argue the dollar's not a great store of value long term, but so maybe for like store of value purposes, but not for transactional purposes, right? Bitcoin is not a great transactional currency. Obviously, there are projects that are trying to fix that, but
it's like gold, right?
Yes.
We used to use gold for payment purposes, not very convenient. And so now it's something that you invest in, but you don't use it on a daily basis to pay.
Yes, it's less shitty than gold for like a payments purpose, but it's not great for payments, right? And so, I mean, that really got us looking into, the types of customers and that sort of thing that we have, right? And over the course of the next year, as we were diving in on the types of customers that we have, we realized, taking it a step further, these aren't really even people that are buying stablecoins, right? These are businesses. These are small businesses all the way up to large enterprises. And I think, one of the ones that we would just talk to customers and it's like, oh, well, no, I'm CFO of this company, but you guys don't offer corporate accounts. So,
Oh.
So, you do what you got to do, right? Or, no, I run a business. Look, we have so many companies that we work with. It's like, oh, I run a business. I import, shoes, clothing, consumer goods, whatever, from China, from India, from Europe, et cetera. And, I use this as a way of actually being able to make that payment, right? The bank can't pay my invoices, so I use stablecoins.
So they were going through personal accounts, but for business purposes.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, look, you start to get suspicious when, individual accounts start moving big money, right? It's like, man, it's like, where'd you get that kind of cash from? So, as part of diligence and everything, you start diving in and asking these guys questions and trying to understand. And yeah, sure enough, it's not a personal account, right? And so that was when we really started with businesses, right? It started onboarding businesses. And again, over the course of the next year, right? And then it was really accelerated with like FTX and some of the other stuff that went on in the industry. We shifted completely to businesses, right? And so, now today, we are the largest licensed stablecoin payments infrastructure provider for businesses across Africa, Southeast Asia, South America, Middle East, right? Basically any part of the world my mom doesn't want me going. We work with, everybody from like Visa, PayPal, some of these large companies, all the way down to, like manufacturers on the ground that just need to pay an invoice to China or India, right? And sort of everybody in between.
So you guys have a partnership with Visa, you just mentioned. What does that look like? And why is it important, or is it even important for this type of regions?
Yeah, I think it's extremely important, right? And this is where again, like I think I differ from some of the industry more broadly in the way that I see some of these things. Is I don't like, look, in crypto, I hear all the time like, crypto's gonna kill Visa, crypto's gonna kill Western Union, crypto's gonna kill, this company or that company. I think that like, these companies, especially the ones that have been around for, in the case of Visa, like 80 years, in the case of Western Union, like 200 years, right? Like these companies are a lot more adaptive than people give them credit for generally, right? And so this idea that like Visa, which I think, look, the only thing that like everybody that's in this room right now during this interview probably has in common is we all have a Visa card in our pocket right now. Right. It's a brand that is extremely recognizable. Right. Just those two companies that I mentioned. Right. That, again, everybody in crypto talks about killing. Visa and Western Union have to be, top 5 most recognizable financial logos on earth. Right. And so, it's like, Visa's not going anywhere. and the opportunity to work with them to help bring them more and more deeply into this space, I think is a huge opportunity for us. And it's a huge opportunity for them to, be able to actually reach markets that they're not in today, right? Something that people don't know about, just Africa broadly, but then, again, you can extrapolate this out to most emerging markets. Card penetration on the continent is 5% of the population.
Physical
card penetration, period. For Visa, MasterCard, for all of it combined, is like 5% of the population. And so you're talking about, a continent of 1.3 billion people in the case of Africa. That is a huge potential growth market for somebody like Visa. And this is not a knock on them, but, cards have lost for domestic payments in these parts of the world, right? People don't use cards for domestic payments in Kenya.
What do they use?
They use mobile money. Right. Mobile money. Right. So in so many parts of the world now, and this goes beyond Africa. Right. I can just text you money. Right. Whether I'm ordering a taxi or I'm at KFC or whatever I'm doing, I can just text you money or text the business money. Right. And that's essentially how mobile money works. Right. And so it's much easier. Right. I don't have to use a card. I just pull out my phone. Hey, what's your number? What's your pay bill for businesses, then, boom, now the money's in your account. It's instant. It's much cheaper than interchange and cards and things like that. And so from a domestic payment standpoint, that's sort of already baked in. And this is not something that these guys don't realize, right? The huge opportunity though is international still, right? That's where these guys make a ton of money and where there's just not good options.
It's interesting because they went from cash, right, to mobile payment, skipping the card part.
Yep.
And so you still think that there's a market for the cards, even though they've already skipped to the mobile payment.
No, 100%. There's a huge opportunity for Visa for card programs. And again, I think, right now, obviously, we think of it as cards, but, the rails that somebody like a Visa has are much more powerful than just the piece of plastic. Right. The rails for international money movement that these guys have in control go way beyond what we think of as just, swiping a card. Right. And so, there are ways, especially now with stablecoins, that, these guys will be able to do more and more from an international payments perspective, whether it's serving the banks directly, providing products to the consumer, whether it's a card or other, apps and things. Visa has, the Visa Direct or Visa Direct Pay app that, they've launched in DR Congo that's doing quite well. And so, you have there are so many different options past the piece of plastic for a giant payments company like that. And the thing is stablecoins are the only way to truly be able to expand into a lot of these emerging markets because the traditional systems just don't work. If the traditional systems worked, then it would look a lot like it looks in the US where everybody just uses their card, right? But it doesn't work. And so, I think what has always been impressive to me about these guys is their willingness. And now, look, I will be the first to tell you they're not the fastest company in the world. I mean, these guys are a huge conglomerate that is responsible for, thousands of transactions a second.
The bigger the company, the slower it moves.
Of course. But they are very open. And this goes for Visa, MasterCard, for, all the interactions that we've had with them. They're very open to innovation that helps them to grow in these parts of the world where historically they haven't seen as much traction.
I guess one of my question is, Visa historically is known for making a ton of money on transaction fees. Right?
Oh, yes. Okay.
Wait, what did you think I was
thought you were just going to stop it. Visa's known for having a lot of money.
Well, listen, here's my take. If you're growing a company and you're pretending profit doesn't matter, your company is not going to make it. So I don't need the bullshit about I'm not interested in profit. I do this for others because I'm so kind-hearted. And my second name is Mother Teresa. It's not true. You need to make profit in order for the company to scale anyway. So Visa is making a lot of money. They wouldn't be as big otherwise, right?
That's true.
But they're known to make a lot of money off of transaction fees. think the CEO was in a trial recently and they said that they make over 50% something. You integrated with Aptos in July of 2025, a couple months ago. The goal is for transactions and using stablecoin without paying any fees. How does that work then? For someone like Visa to be in these markets using stablecoins, where the point is to have zero fees.
Transaction fees are going to zero. That's why, companies like that are ahead of the curve in terms of stablecoins, in terms of utilizing this technology, putting out products using this technology, are going to survive. And the ones that are not will not, right? Because transaction fees will go to zero, right? Regardless. And so, I mean, like the analogy that I always like to use in terms of like how fundamental of a shift this is for banks, right? Because look, I mean, I talked to, the CEOs of like some of these tier one banks. A lot of these guys are writing off intermediary fee revenue. They're writing off, certain like types of transactional revenue to zero over the course of a decade. And, again, if you're going to write off big parts of your business to essentially zero, you need to find that elsewhere, right? You need to, again, go back to being innovative. And I think, the analogy that I always use when I'm talking to bankers is, 10 years ago or 20 years ago in 2005, if you were running a bank and you decided we're not going to have an online banking portal, we're not going to have a mobile app for transactions. People love doing business in person. Everybody is always going to want to go to a bank branch and do a transaction in person. We're going to double down. We're going to open twice as many branches over the next 20 years. That bank wouldn't exist today. That bank would have gone out a long time ago. Everybody would have switched over to a better bank, to a more innovative and internet enabled bank, right? I don't know about you. I couldn't tell you last time I went to a bank branch, right? Like,
it's only when they don't pick up the phone.
I don't know the last time I called a bank. I do everything on the app, right, or online.
Yeah, that's true.
And so, that bank wouldn't exist 20 years later in 2025. We're at the same point right now with stablecoins. A bank in 2025 that is not looking into stablecoins, not trying to better understand how this technology can be applied within their systems, within their transactions to create better experiences for their customers, is going to have no customers in 2045. Because the expectation from consumers matches innovation and technology. Now that the internet is a thing, the customer expects to be able to use the internet when interacting with you as a business. If a business did not have a website, I would not use them. It doesn't exist because the consumer expectation is now, well, this technology exists. You as a business need to use it because that's the experience I want. It's going to be the same with stablecoins over the course of the next 20 years. Stablecoins bring transactional fees to essentially zero, right? With Aptos and just any number of options, right? Bring these transaction fees to essentially zero. And so, the expectation is going to be that if I'm sending 10 cents or I'm sending $10 million, there should be essentially no transaction fee on that, right? And obviously, that's a lot of what you guys are doing is on I think especially on the small payment side. That's where I think, the innovation really comes in, right? But yeah.
Yeah, because most daily transactions are not big amounts. So...
No, especially in emerging markets, right? Which is where I think, y'all's technology, again, makes the most sense and is the most important, right? The average transaction size for, again, we were talking about mobile money. The average transaction size for some of these platforms is $1. And so, and these guys will do millions of transactions a day, right? And so, some of these guys have 300 million users, right? And they're doing millions of transactions a day. This is essentially the bank for a lot of these people. And how do you make that system more efficient, right? How do you cut out the, sort of archaic and bulky infrastructure that handles that today and move that to, again, a blockchain enabled solution that actually makes sense for the business and for the consumer.
Yellow card.
Well, again, I'm biased, but that's we do provide that infrastructure. Yes.
Really quickly, I guess, for a little bit of shilling, why there's so many layer ones out there? Why do you feel like Aptos makes the most sense for the next 20 years then?
Yeah, I think one of the important things that you guys are focused on, that to me is extremely interesting, is like, and look, because I think a lot of chains talk about this, but not a lot of chains actually have been built in a way to be able to handle it from a capacity standpoint. Look, any of these L1s can do $1 million transaction. If I need to send 1 million 10-cent transactions, that's a totally different story, right? And I think, when you look at, again, some of the other prominent L1s out there, again, to compare it to Visa, if an L1 can handle, 1,000 transactions per second, well, that's great. Visa does what, like 20,000 transactions a second or something or more, right? And so, again, like the scale that you have to be able to operate at is just, sort of unbelievable in terms of like the way that the space is thinking about it today. And so I think one of the interesting things about you guys specifically, and one of the places that I think you guys will be able to find a niche, is in emerging markets where like low value, high volume, high throughput, high number of transactions that, all need to be processed seamlessly. I think that's where, you guys really have a, niche that will be, extremely valuable over the next 10, 20 years.
Great scale in terms of volume. You guys are started mostly by you guys, Yellow Card in Africa. You're expanding to LATAM, Southeast Asia. What are the biggest challenges that you're facing today?
Yeah, I think, for us, as we were looking at expansion, it was trying to learn and understand a new region, right? I think, for, in the beginning, we were quite focused on markets on the African continent. And, look, Botswana and Nigeria have about as much in common as, Italy and China, right? And so, there's a lot of diversity within the continent, but then there's also a lot of diversity, again, outside, right? And Africa and South America are nothing alike, right? It's extremely different. Southeast Asia, et cetera, like the way that people do business, the way that people, operate, interact, et cetera. Having to relearn a lot of that was, I would say, one of the bigger challenges when we looked at, entering new markets. But, fortunately, again, we've done this at scale across a number of countries. And so we do have, somewhat of a playbook for it, right?
Makes sense. So understanding market footprint where you are.
Understanding market dynamics anywhere you need to go.
One word to describe Aptos.
Fast.
Second is, in 2022, 2023, you were in Forbes 30 under 30, big money startups. How does it feel to be amazing?
Shit, man. That's not the Forbes list I'm trying to make. You know what I'm saying, baby? But no, I'm kidding. No, it's good. I think it was that was cool.
That was cool.
That was cool.
I woke up and that was cool.
It was one of those things where I don't really have hobbies. All I do is this.
And Pokemon cards.
Yeah, and Pokemon. Well, not really anymore. But I have really nothing else to do with my day. And so, anytime that you get recognized for being a total nerd and, dedicating your life to something, it's fun. So, yeah.
That's it. Cool and fun. Very low key.
Cool and fun. Sick. It was totally sick.
That's how I know you're 10, 20.
That's how I'm 21. We're both 21, as a reminder.
Thank you so much, Chris, for your time today.
Thank you.
Great conversation. And we'll see you around the world.
Hell yeah. We're going to do this like 2 more times, right?
Let's do it. Any day.
Sick.
Any day.
So great to see you.